Marcus Cole stood in the massive hall of the Imperial Palace, feeling very small. The ceiling rose so high above him that clouds actually formed near the top. Purple and gold light filtered through windows made of some kind of crystal he had never seen before. Everything around him screamed wealth and power beyond human understanding. He was just a soldier from Earth, a nobody from the outer colonies, the kind of man who ate cold rations and slept in mud during the border wars. Now he wore a formal military uniform that cost more than his entire year's salary, and he waited to meet the crown prince of the Valorian Empire. The Valorians ruled half the known galaxy. They were tall, elegant beings with silver skin and eyes like liquid gold. They moved with a grace that made humans look clumsy. They lived for thousands of years, and most importantly, they possessed mental abilities that terrified every other species in the universe. They could read thoughts, project emotions, and according to some rumors, control weaker minds entirely. Marcus had been chosen for this assignment because of his service record. 15 years of perfect duty, 3 major conflicts, not a single black mark against his name. The Galactic Council had requested a human god for the young prince, and Marcus was the unlucky winner of that lottery. He did not want to be here. He wanted to be back on Earth, drinking cheap beer and watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. Instead, he was about to become the personal bodyguard of a telepathic alien prince who could probably scramble his brain with a single thought. The massive doors at the far end of the hall opened without a sound. A figure walked through them, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. Prince Kelvin looked nothing like the intimidating royal that Marcus had imagined. He was young by Valorian standards, which meant he was probably around 200 years old. His silver skin had a softer glow than the older Valorians Marcus had seen. His golden eyes held curiosity rather than cold judgment. He wore simple clothes, not the elaborate robes of royalty, and he was alone. No servants, no other guards, just a prince walking across an empty hall to meet a human soldier. Marcus snapped to attention and saluted. His heart hammered in his chest. He had been trained to resist mental intrusion, but everyone knew such training was useless against a Valorian. They could slip past any mental defense like water through fingers. Prince Kelvin stopped a few feet away and studied Marcus with open interest. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. "You are afraid of me," the prince said finally. His voice was soft, almost musical. "Your mind burns with it. Fear and anger and something else. Resentment, perhaps. You did not choose this duty." Marcus kept his face blank, so the prince was already reading his thoughts. There was nothing he could do about that. "Your Highness, I am Sergeant Marcus Cole. I have been assigned as your personal guard. I know who you are, Marcus Cole." The prince tilted his head slightly. "I have read your file. I requested you specifically." That caught Marcus off guard. He blinked. "You requested me, Your Highness." "Yes. Your people fascinate me. I have never met a human before. Your species is young, barely reaching the stars while we have traveled among them for millions of years. And yet there is something different about you, something I cannot quite understand." Marcus did not know how to respond to that. He remained at attention, waiting. The prince began to walk in a slow circle around him, still studying him like a scientist examining a new specimen. "I can read the minds of every species in the galaxy. The Zeltans think in colors. The Morath think in mathematical patterns. The Kree think in layers of meaning, like music. But humans," he paused directly behind Marcus. "Humans are chaos. I apologize if my thoughts are offensive, Your Highness. No, you misunderstand." The prince moved back to face him. Those golden eyes were bright with something that looked almost like excitement. "I cannot read you. Not properly. Your mind is like a storm. I catch fragments, emotions, images, but the thoughts themselves slip away before I can grasp them. It is the most frustrating and wonderful thing I have ever experienced." Marcus allowed himself to feel a small spark of hope. If the prince could not fully read his mind, perhaps this assignment would not be as terrible as he had feared. "I see that spark of hope," the prince said, and Marcus felt his heart sink again. "You see, I can still feel what you feel. Emotions are easier than thoughts. Right now, you feel hope, disappointment, frustration, and underneath it all, a deep tiredness that has nothing to do with your body. With respect, Your Highness, I would prefer to keep my feelings private." The prince laughed. It was a genuine sound, full of warmth. "Then you will have to teach me how, because I have tried to block out the emotions of others my entire life, and I have never succeeded. Do you know what it is like to feel everything that everyone around you feels? To carry their joy and their pain and their fear as if it were your own?" For a moment, Marcus forgot that he was talking to royalty. He saw only a young man who looked exhausted, lonely, burdened by a gift that was also a curse. "That sounds like hell, Your Highness." "It is." The prince smiled, but there was sadness in it. "That is why I asked for a human god. Your emotions are strong but contained. You do not broadcast them the way other species do. Standing near you is like standing in the eye of a storm. Even while chaos swirls around us." Marcus finally understood. He was not here because of his military skills. He was here because he was the only species in the galaxy that gave this prince peace. "I will do my duty, Your Highness," Marcus said. And this time, he meant it. The prince nodded, and something passed between them. Not friendship, not yet, but the beginning of understanding, the first thread of a bond that would change both of their lives forever. "Come," Prince Kelvin said. "Let me show you your quarters. And Marcus, you may call me Kale when we are alone. I have enough people treating me like an object to worship. I would like at least one person who sees me as something real." Marcus followed the prince through the golden halls, and he wondered what he had gotten himself into. 3 weeks passed on the Imperial homeworld, and Marcus learned more about Valorian society than any human ever had. The palace was a maze of secrets and dangers. Every noble family wanted something from the crown prince. Some wanted political favors, others wanted marriage alliances, a few wanted him dead so their own children could rise in the succession. Kale navigated these waters with the skill of someone who had been swimming in them since birth. But Marcus could see the toll it took on him. Each night, when the endless stream of visitors finally stopped, Kale would sit in his private chambers and rub his temples. The headaches came from feeling too many emotions at once. Hundreds of people came to the palace every day, and Kale felt all of them. Their greed, their ambition, their hatred, their lust. It poured into him like poison. Marcus began to understand why Kale kept him close. The prince was not exaggerating when he called Marcus a calm in the storm. Whenever the pressure became too much, Kale would look at Marcus, and some of the tension would leave his shoulders. "How do you do it?" Kale asked one evening. They were sitting on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Billions of Valorians lived below, their light spreading to the horizon like a sea of stars. "How do you contain everything inside yourself?" Marcus thought about the question seriously. He owed the prince that much. Soldiers learn to compartmentalize. We see things that would break most people. We lose friends. We make choices that haunt us forever. If we let ourselves feel all of it at once, we would shatter. So we build walls inside ourselves. We put the pain in boxes and lock those boxes away. That sounds unhealthy. It probably is, but it keeps us functional. Kale was silent for a long moment. "Your species is remarkable. You are so fragile compared to us. Your lives are so short. And yet you survive things that would destroy beings far older and stronger than yourselves." "We are stubborn," Marcus said. "It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness." Before Kale could respond, Marcus felt something wrong. It was not a sound or a sight. It was a feeling deep in his gut, the instinct that had kept him alive through 15 years of combat. He was on his feet before he consciously understood the threat, his hand going to the plasma pistol at his hip. "Get down," he said to Kale. It was not a request. Kale obeyed instantly. Dropping behind the stone railing of the balcony, his trust in Marcus was absolute. Forged in these 3 weeks of constant companionship, Marcus scanned the darkness beyond the balcony. His eyes could not see anything unusual, but his instincts were screaming. Something was out there, something that wanted to kill. The attack came from above. A figure dropped from the palace roof, wrapped in a stealth suit that bent light around it. To Valorian eyes, the assassin would have been invisible, but Marcus was not Valorian. Humans saw in different light wavelengths, and the stealth suit had not been designed for human vision. Marcus caught a shimmer in the air, a slight distortion that told him exactly where the killer was. He fired 3 times. The first shot forced the assassin to dodge. The second clipped its shoulder. The third hit sent a mass, and the figure tumbled to the balcony floor with a crash of breaking stone. Alarms began to wail throughout the palace. Guards would arrive within moments, but Marcus was already moving, checking the fallen assassin and confirming the kill. The body wore the symbol of House Verith, one of the noble families that had opposed the current emperor's rule. "Is it over?" Kale asked, still crouched behind the railing. For now, Marcus extended a hand to help the prince up. "But this is just the beginning. If House Verith is willing to attempt assassination openly, the political situation is worse than anyone realized." Kale took his hand and stood. His golden eyes were wide, but not with fear. With wonder. "You saw the assassin. The stealth suit should have made them completely invisible. Human eyes work differently than Valorian eyes. The suit was not calibrated for us. Then choosing you as my guard was even wiser than I knew." Kale looked at Marcus with something new in his expression. Not just gratitude, respect. "You saved my life, Marcus Cole. That is my job, Your Highness." "Kale, I told you to call me Kale when we are alone. That is my job." Kale the prince laughed despite the dead assassin lying a few feet away. "You are impossible. My people would be weeping and praising the ancestors right now. You just do your job and move on. Crying does not stop the next assassin." The palace guards finally arrived, flooding the balcony with armed soldiers. They took the body away and began a sweep of the entire palace. The emperor himself sent a message demanding to know what had happened. Kale spent the next several hours in meetings with security officials, explaining the attack over and over through it all. Marcus stood at his side, silent, watchful, a wall between the prince and any threat. When the night finally ended and Kale was allowed to return to his chambers, he collapsed onto a chair and stared at the ceiling. "House Verith has been planning this for years. I could feel it in the assassin's mind before they died. There are others. This was only the first attempt. Then we need to find them before they try again." Kale raised an eyebrow. "You are my bodyguard, Marcus. not my spy. This is not your war. Marcus sat in the chair across from the prince, something he never would have done 3 weeks ago. But things had changed between them. The formality was fading, replaced by something that felt dangerously close to friendship. I made a promise to protect you, Marcus said. I intend to keep it. If that means hunting down every enemy you have in this empire, then that is what I will do. Cale studied him for a long moment. Marcus felt the gentle brush of the prince's mental abilities, not reading his thoughts but sensing his emotions. Whatever Cale found there seemed to satisfy him. You actually mean that? There is no deception in you, no hidden agenda. You simply want to protect me because you said you would. That is what humans do. We keep our word. I am beginning to think, Cale said slowly, that the galaxy has underestimated your species for a very long time. Marcus shrugged. We prefer it that way. Low expectations mean people are surprised when we exceed them. The prince laughed again, and some of the exhaustion left his face. Get some rest, Marcus. Tomorrow we hunt traitors. As you command, Cale. Marcus walked to the door, but the prince's voice stopped him. Marcus, thank you. Not just for saving my life, for seeing me as a person instead of a title. I have not had that in centuries. Marcus nodded once, then left the prince to sleep. But he did not rest himself. Instead, he spent the night studying the palace layout, the guard rotations, and every possible entry point for an assassin. The next attack would not catch him off guard. The investigation into House Verith revealed something far more dangerous than a single rebellious family. Marcus stood in the Emperor's war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing a network of conspiracy that spread across a dozen star systems. Emperor Kelthros was ancient even by Valorian standards. His silver skin had darkened to near black with age, and his golden eyes burned with cold fury. He had ruled for 50,000 years. He had crushed rebellions and conquered empires. But this threat came from within, and that made it more dangerous than any external enemy. 17 noble houses, the Emperor said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. 17 families have joined this plot against my son, against my empire. Marcus stood behind Cale, his eyes moving constantly across the room. There were too many people here, too many potential threats. He had memorized every face, every weapon, every possible escape route. Father, Cale spoke carefully. The human's involvement proved invaluable in stopping the assassin. His abilities complement our own in unexpected ways. I propose we use this advantage. The Emperor's ancient gaze shifted to Marcus. It was like being examined by a mountain. Marcus kept his face neutral, his thoughts as controlled as he could make them. The human sees what we cannot, the Emperor acknowledged. This is useful, but he is still just one man. Then give me more, Marcus said. The words came out before he could stop them. Every Valorian in the room turned to stare at him. A human had just spoken without permission in the Emperor's presence. Cale tensed beside him, but the Emperor merely raised one silver eyebrow. Explain yourself. Human. Marcus knew he was walking on the edge of a blade. One wrong word could end his life. But he had spent 3 weeks watching how this empire operated, and he had seen its weaknesses. Your Highness, the Valorians are the most powerful telepaths in the galaxy, but that power has made you predictable. Your enemies know how you think, how you perceive, how you fight. They have had millions of years to study your methods and develop countermeasures. He gestured at the conspiracy network floating in the air. They are using stealth technology calibrated specifically against Valorian senses. They are recruiting species immune to mental probing. They are fighting you with your own blind spots. And you propose humans as a solution. Humans are chaotic. We think in ways your enemies cannot predict. We see in spectrums they have not accounted for. And we are expendable enough that losing us would not damage your empire. Marcus kept his voice steady. Give me a small team of human soldiers. Let us be the wild card your enemies do not see coming. The silence that followed stretched for an eternity. Marcus could feel the mental pressure of every Valorian in the room, probing at his thoughts, trying to determine if he was sincere or working some angle of his own. Finally, the Emperor spoke. You are either very brave or very foolish, human. I have not decided which, but your proposal has merit. You will have your team, and if you fail, your species will be barred from Imperial space forever. Marcus nodded. Understood, Your Highness. After the meeting, Cale pulled Marcus into a private corridor. The prince's expression was a mixture of admiration and exasperation. You just spoke out of turn to the Emperor of half the known galaxy. Do you have any idea how many beings have died for lesser offenses? The Emperor needed to hear the truth. Sometimes the truth requires risk. You are insane. Cale shook his head, but he was smiling, and I am beginning to think that is exactly what this empire needs. 3 days later, Marcus stood at a military spaceport watching a transport ship descend. The Galactic Council had responded to his request with surprising speed. 20 soldiers emerged from the ship, all of them human, all of them veterans of Earth's most brutal conflicts. Among them was a face Marcus knew well, Captain Sarah Chen, his former commanding officer from the Border Wars. She walked toward him with the same confident stride he remembered, her eyes taking in the alien world around them with professional interest. Marcus Cole, she said, when I heard you were requesting troops, I had to see it for myself. The man who never wanted responsibility, now leading a special operations unit for an alien empire. War changes people, Captain, it certainly does. She looked past him to where Kale stood watching. And that would be the prince you are guarding. Yes, he is also the reason we are here. Someone is trying to kill him, and the usual methods are not working. Chen nodded. All business now. Brief me on everything. The enemy structure, their capabilities, their known agents. I want my people ready to move within 48 hours. Marcus introduced Chen and her soldiers to Kale. The prince observed them with open curiosity, his mental abilities brushing against each human mind in turn. Remarkable, Kale said quietly to Marcus. Each of them is like you, chaotic, contained, unpredictable. I can sense their emotions but not their thoughts. It is like looking at a lake that shows only the surface while the depths remain hidden. That is what makes humans good soldiers. We can surprise even ourselves. The first mission came sooner than expected. Intelligence reports indicated that 3 leaders of the conspiracy were meeting on a space station in the neutral zone between Imperial territory and the outer systems. Traditional Valorian operatives had tried to infiltrate the station twice. Both attempts had failed because the conspirators were using mental shields and Valorian-calibrated detection systems. Marcus and his team approached the problem differently. Instead of stealth, they used distraction. Instead of mental abilities, they used old-fashioned human deception. Chen created a fake identity as a weapons dealer. 2 of her soldiers posed as her bodyguards. Marcus and the rest provided backup from a hidden position. The conspirators never saw them coming. Their mental shields were useless against opponents who did not rely on mental attacks. Their detection systems were calibrated for Valorian life signs, not human ones. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late. 3 leaders of the conspiracy were captured alive, their minds open for Valorian interrogators to examine. The information extracted revealed the full scope of the plot. It was not just about killing Kale, it was about destroying the imperial bloodline entirely and replacing Valorian rule with a council of noble houses. The emperor was pleased. For the first time in millennia, he looked at humans with something other than dismissive tolerance. You have proven your worth, he told Marcus. Your species may be young, but you have earned a place in my empire. Marcus accepted the praise with a simple nod. He did not care about politics or galactic standing. He cared about one thing only: keeping Kale alive that night. After the celebrations had ended and the palace had grown quiet, Kale found Marcus standing on the same balcony where the assassin had attacked. The prince joined him, and they stood together in comfortable silence. You are changing things, Kale said eventually. Not just for me, but for your entire species. The way my father looks at humans now is different. The way the entire court sees them is shifting. You are opening doors that have been closed for millennia. I am just doing my job. No, Kale turned to face him. You are being yourself. And that is enough to change the galaxy. Marcus looked at the prince, at the young man who had become his friend, despite every barrier between them. Is that what you see when you feel my emotions? That, and more. Kale's golden eyes reflected the light of distant stars. I see loyalty, purpose, a fierce determination to protect what matters, and underneath it all, a capacity for connection that your species rarely admits to having. You see too much, Kale. I see exactly enough. The prince smiled, and I am grateful for it every day. The conspiracy did not die quietly. As Marcus and his team dismantled its outer layers, the inner circle grew desperate. They accelerated their plans, abandoning caution for speed. The attack came during the Festival of Light, the most sacred celebration in the Valorian calendar. Billions of citizens gathered in the capital to watch the imperial family perform the ancient rituals. Every screen in the empire broadcast the ceremony live. It was supposed to be a moment of unity. Instead, it became a moment of chaos. Marcus was standing at his usual position behind Kale when he felt the first tremor. The ground beneath the ceremonial platform shook. Screams erupted from the crowd. Then the sky exploded. Ships dropped out of hyperspace directly above the capital. Dozens of them, all bearing the combined symbols of the rebel houses. They opened fire not on military targets but on civilian districts. Thousands died in the first seconds. It was not an assassination attempt. It was an invasion. The emperor rose to his feet, ancient power crackling around him. His voice boomed across the city without amplification. Treachery will be answered with annihilation. But even as he spoke, Marcus saw the true threat. Moving through the chaos of the crowd was a group of figures wearing the same stealth suits as the balcony assassin. They were heading directly for Kale. Chen. Marcus spoke into his communicator. Enemy ground team approaching the platform. Stealth suits. Count unknown. Chun's response was immediate. We have eyes on them. 7 targets, moving to intercept. But the assassins were too close, and Chun's team was too far. Marcus would have to hold them alone. He stepped in front of Kale, drawing his weapon. The prince tried to push past him, tried to use his mental abilities to locate the threats, but the stealth suits blocked his senses. Stay behind me, Marcus ordered. For once in your life, let someone else fight your battles. The first assassin became visible a heartbeat before striking. Marcus fired, dropping the figure before it could complete its attack. Two more shimmered into view from opposite directions. He shot the one on the left and blocked the other's blade with his forearm. The knife cut deep, but Marcus ignored the pain. Pain was just information. It told him he was still alive. He grappled with the assassin, using techniques learned in the brutal training pits of Earth's military academies. The Valorian was stronger, faster, more refined, but Marcus was desperate and creative and willing to do whatever was necessary to survive. He headbutted the assassin, feeling bone crack beneath the impact. Then he twisted, using his attacker's momentum to throw them off the platform. A 10-meter fall onto stone finished what Marcus had started. 4 more assassins remained. They had witnessed what happened to their companions. They adjusted their tactics, spreading out to attack from multiple angles at once. Marcus could not win this. He knew it with the cold clarity of a soldier facing impossible odds. But he could buy time. Chun's team was coming. The Emperor's guards were rallying. Every second Marcus survived was a second closer to rescue. He threw himself into the fight with everything he had. His plasma pistol ran dry, so he used it as a club. When an assassin knocked it from his grip, he fought with his fists. When they cut him, he used the blood to make his skin slippery, harder to hold. He was a human tornado of violence and defiance, but even human stubbornness has limits. A blade found his side. Another sliced across his back. He fell to one knee, his vision darkening at the edges. Kale screamed. It was not a sound of fear. It was a sound of power. The prince dropped his mental shields completely for the first time in his life. Every mind in the immediate area felt the full force of his abilities. The assassins froze, their brains overwhelmed by the telepathic assault. They collapsed where they stood, alive but utterly incapacitated. But Kale had done more than stop the attackers. He had felt every death in the city, every moment of fear and pain and despair from the millions of people under attack. It all poured into him at once, and he fell beside Marcus, clutching his head and screaming. Kale. Marcus crawled toward the prince, ignoring his own wounds. Kale, shield yourself. You need to block them out. I cannot. Tears of liquid gold streamed down the prince's face. They are dying. So many of them dying. I can feel all of it. Marcus, every death, every loss. It is too much. Marcus did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed Kale and pulled him close, wrapping his arms around the prince like a shield. His own emotions rose to the surface. His determination, his protectiveness, his stubborn refusal to let anything hurt the person he had sworn to guard. Focus on me, Marcus said. Just me. Block out everything else and focus on what I am feeling right now. Kale shuddered in his arms. The screaming stopped. The prince's breathing slowly steadied. I can feel you, Kale whispered. So strong, so clear. You are afraid for me. You are in pain. But, underneath it all, you are absolutely certain that we will survive. Where does that certainty come from? I am human. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. This will be no different. Above them, the battle in the sky was turning. Imperial warships had arrived to engage the rebel fleet. The initial surprise was fading, replaced by the full might of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. The rebels had hoped to win quickly, to kill the imperial family and claim victory before reinforcements arrived. That plan had failed. Chen reached them first, her team forming a protective circle around the platform. Medical personnel followed, treating Marcus's wounds with advanced healing technology that closed the cuts in seconds. But Marcus refused to let go of Kale until he was certain the prince was stable. The telepathic backlash from dropping his shields had wounded Kale in ways that medicine could not easily fix. His mind was raw, overwhelmed, burned by exposure to too much suffering at once. You saved me again, Kale said when he could finally speak normally. And then you saved me a different way. When I was drowning in everyone else's pain, you gave me an anchor. That is what humans do. We hold on. The aftermath of the attack was devastating. 15,000 civilians dead. A dozen warships destroyed on both sides. The rebel fleet eventually retreated, but the damage was done. The Festival of Light would never be the same. The Emperor emerged from the battle with cold fury in his ancient eyes. He declared total war on the rebel houses. Every member of the conspiracy, no matter how minor their involvement, would be hunted down and destroyed. But before he departed to lead the campaign personally, he paused in front of Marcus. That human was still sitting beside Kale, both of them covered in blood and ash. You protected my son when my own guards failed, the Emperor said. You remained by his side when you should have fled, and you gave him something to hold on to when his own powers nearly destroyed him. I was just doing my duty, Your Highness. No, the Emperor shook his head slowly. You were being loyal. There is a difference. Duty is a contract. Loyalty is a choice. You chose my son, and that choice saved his life. The ancient Valorian extended one silver hand and touched Marcus on the forehead. The human felt a surge of warmth, a blessing from a being who was nearly a god. You are under my protection now, Marcus Cole. All humans are. Your species has proven itself worthy of the Empire. When this war ends, we will discuss new treaties, new partnerships, a new era for your people. Marcus bowed his head. Thank you, Your Highness. The Emperor left to wage war, and the palace fell silent. But Marcus and Kale remained together, two friends who had survived something terrible and emerged stronger for it. The war lasted 2 years. Marcus fought through all of it, leading his human strike teams against rebel strongholds throughout the Empire. Chen became a legend, her tactical genius breaking siege after siege. Human soldiers who had once been considered primitive mercenaries were now honored warriors of the Imperial Guard. But Marcus always returned to Kale. The prince had changed. After the Festival of Light, the overwhelming experience of feeling so much death had broken something inside him, but it had also revealed something new. He had learned that he did not have to carry the emotions of others alone. Marcus had shown him that connection could be strength instead of burden. They grew closer with each passing month. What had started as a professional relationship between guard and prince had evolved into true friendship. And then, in the quiet moments between battles, it had become something deeper still. The final battle took place above Verith Prime, the homeworld of the house that had started the rebellion. The Emperor led his fleet personally, determined to end the conflict with overwhelming force. Marcus and his team were deployed to the planet's surface to capture the last leaders of the conspiracy before they could escape. The mission was supposed to be simple. Intelligence indicated that only a handful of defenders remained in the rebel command bunker, but intelligence was wrong. Marcus and 20 soldiers walked into an ambush, energy weapons fired from hidden positions. The ground itself exploded with buried mines. Within minutes, half the team was down, and the survivors were pinned in a crossfire with no cover. Chen was hit first, a plasma blast catching her in the chest. She fell, and Marcus felt the loss like a physical blow. They had served together for 2 decades. She had been more than a commanding officer. She had been family. Fall back, Marcus ordered. His voice was steady even though his heart was breaking. Get the wounded out. I will hold them. The remaining soldiers obeyed, dragging their injured comrades toward the extraction point. Marcus stayed behind, laying down covering fire that forced the enemy to keep their heads down. He knew he was going to die. The mathematics were simple. 1 man against dozens. No cover. Limited ammunition. It was only a matter of time. But he was human, and humans did not surrender. He fought with everything he had learned in 30 years of warfare. He moved constantly, never giving the enemy a clear shot. He used every piece of debris as temporary cover. He rationed his shots, making each one count. For 10 minutes, he held off an entire rebel battalion through sheer determination and skill. The first wound came when a sniper caught him in the shoulder. He kept fighting. The second hit his leg, and he fell to one knee. He kept fighting. The third struck his side, reopening the scar from the Festival of Light. He kept fighting when his plasma pistol ran empty. He threw it at an enemy soldier and drew his combat knife. When the knife broke against Valorian armor, he used his fists. When he could no longer stand, he crawled toward the nearest enemy. Still trying to take one more with him, he was still crawling when the sky split. Apart, a beam of golden light descended from orbit, vaporizing the rebel battalion in an instant. Imperial dropships appeared overhead, deploying hundreds of fresh troops, and leading them, his eyes blazing with power, was Prince Kelvin. The prince landed beside Marcus and immediately knelt. Golden tears streamed down his silver face. You impossible fool, Kale said. Why did you not retreat with the others? Someone had to buy them time. Marcus coughed, and blood stained his lips. My job is to protect, not just you. Everyone. You are not dying here. Kale placed both hands on Marcus's chest. I forbid it. You cannot command death, Kyle. Watch me. What happened next was something no Valorian had ever attempted. Kale opened his mind completely, not to the chaotic emotions of the world around him, but to the single, focused consciousness of Marcus Cole. He poured his own life energy into the dying human, using their emotional bond as a bridge. Marcus felt warmth flood through him. His wounds stopped bleeding. His vision cleared. Strength returned to his limbs. It was not healing in the traditional sense. It was something else entirely, a sharing, a joining, 2 minds and 2 souls intertwined so deeply that they could no longer be separated when it was over. Marcus sat up, whole and healthy, but he was different. He could feel Kale in the back of his mind, a constant presence like a second heartbeat, and from the expression on the prince's face, Kale could feel him too. What did you do? Marcus asked. I bound us together. Kale looked both exhausted and radiant. Our life forces are linked now. While I live, you cannot die. And while you live, I will never be alone. That seems like an extreme solution to a temporary problem. Kale laughed, the sound mixing with tears. You were dying in front of me, Marcus. I was not going to let that happen. I made a choice. Just as you chose me on that first day, I have chosen you. The war ended that same day, with their final stronghold destroyed and their leaders captured. The rebel houses had no choice but to surrender. The Emperor accepted their submission with cold mercy, executing the conspirators but sparing the innocent members of each family. The peace that followed reshaped the galaxy. Humans were elevated from minor partners to honored allies of the Valorian Empire. Trade agreements opened new wealth to Earth and its colonies. Human soldiers served alongside Valorian guards. Human scientists worked with Valorian scholars. Two species that had once barely acknowledged each other became intertwined in ways no one had predicted, and at the center of it all were Marcus, Cole, and Prince Kelvin. They stood together on the balcony where everything had begun. Below them, the capital celebrated the first anniversary of peace. Fireworks painted the sky in colors that no human eye had seen before. Music drifted up from the streets, blending Valorian harmonies with human rhythms. 1 year, Cale said. 1 year since the war ended. 1 year since you changed everything. I did not change anything. I just did my job. Cale turned to face him. Through their bond, Marcus felt the prince's emotions as clearly as his own. Love, gratitude, wonder, hope for a future neither of them could have imagined. You showed my people that strength does not come from power alone. You showed them that courage and loyalty and stubbornness can move mountains. You showed them that a species barely out of its cradle can stand beside an empire that has ruled for millions of years. Cale smiled. That is more than just doing your job, Marcus. Marcus thought about his journey, from a soldier sleeping in mud to a guardian of galactic royalty, from a man who trusted no one to someone bound heart and soul to an alien prince, from a human among giants to a legend that would echo through history. I was sent to guard you, Marcus said finally. Nobody told me you could speak minds. Nobody told me you would become my closest friend. Nobody told me any of this would happen. Are you sorry it did? Marcus looked at Cale, at the young man who had seen past his walls, at the prince who had become his purpose, at the partner whose soul now beat alongside his own. No, he said, I would not change any of it. They stood together as the fireworks continued. Two beings from different worlds united by something stronger than species or power or time. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. Now it was learning what Earth's children could accomplish when they had something worth protecting. And Marcus Cole, the reluctant guardian who became a legend, smiled at the future he had helped create.